Surprise, surprise! This week we are having our episode come out a day early because it is my birthday, and that means it's time for my annual birthday sale. So I thought it would just be fun to have the video come out today instead of tomorrow. So this is On That If I Want To, and my name is Andrea Mowry, and this is a little weekly podcast where I try my best to answer some of your questions. Every year I do a big sale on my birthday. I have done this since I first began designing and publishing knitting patterns, and it's just a lot of fun. So if you're a newsletter subscriber, go there because you do get the best discount in my newsletter. If you want to be a newsletter subscriber, you can find that link below in the show notes. But I so appreciate people coming here and watching these videos, so I wanted to do a discount for you as well. So you can go ahead and use the code, all caps, DRKYT, and that'll save you 25% off of all of my patterns, except for ones that I've published with like a third party because I don't fully own those, so I can't include them in the sale. The only other one that's not included is the framed sweater because I just released it. So we gotta let that one ride its wave a little bit longer before it gets included in the big old discount sale. But the sale will go on until August 7th, 2024. So it's on for a week, and you can take advantage of it on my website or over on Ravelry. And again, that includes all of my independently published patterns, so the ones that I own the full rights to, except for the framed sweater. So this is a great time to stock up on the patterns you've had your eye on, because it is my biggest sale of the year. So I hope you find something that you love. Today I am wearing my velvet mirror cowl. This is knit up in Ching Fiber, Surrey Alpaca, and Spin Cycle Yarns Nocturne, which is kind of like their moody version of dyed in the wool. And I love it. The color work is actually based off of my pink velvet sweater. So I loved that motif in that yoke so much that I decided to play with it and extend it and turn it into this fun cowl. So let's jump into some questions. Question number 1. Why do I always get a hole when I pick up wrap and turn stitches on the short rows in the round? I have tried to solve this problem but cannot seem to get it right. So this is a thing, and it's not you. When we work short rows, we're working flat. So we go back and forth, right? But let's say we're doing a top-down round yoke sweater and there's some back neck shaping to help lift up the back of the sweater, and that's typically done with short rows. So we work back and forth in rows to create this wedge of fabric to help the sweater, help the fit of the sweater so that it lays better on our bodies. But at some point, for some reason, I have 8 billion timers going off. I don't know what's happening. So at some point though, we have to go back to working in the round. And so it's typically, there's one last little pesky wrap and turn or short row that has to be quote unquote resolved once we return to working in the round. And here is why it's an issue. Because we wrapped that stitch, all the other ones that we're resolving, generally, you can absolutely end up having to resolve all of them when you're back in the round, but it tends to be this one tricky one. So that's just how I'm talking about it. But you come up to it, and this was wrapped on a different side of your work, but now you're approaching it. So it's probably wrapped on the wrong side, but now you're approaching it from the front and coming at it from the other side of your work. So typically you would have come back this way and resolved it, but now you're coming from this direction and the other side. So you can't just work the wrap and the stitch together. It's gonna leave a little hole. Because of this, I filmed a tutorial, and it's usually you can find it in the notes section of any of my patterns that are going to run into this. So typically in my round yoke sweaters that are worked from the top down. So I'm just going to go ahead. It's easier if you just look at the tutorial. So I'm just going to go ahead and link that below. But I just want to say it is not you. It is the actual, like, that is what it is. And so there's a special technique you can do where you slip a stitch and work it through the back or whatever it is. I actually would need to go review it myself. But there is a way to do it so that there's no hole. So don't worry, you can absolutely do it to get rid of that hole, and this tutorial will help you. So that is going to be linked right down below. Okay, I don't know why that song is stuck in my head. I always love your videos and especially find all of your tutorials really helpful and find myself referring to them on a regular basis. I'm so happy to hear that. It's really, really nice to hear that you find them helpful. That being said, I was looking at knitting your winter honey shawl and was wondering if you were going to put out a tutorial for the cabling in that pattern. I absolutely love it, but don't have much experience with cabling and don't feel like there are many videos out there for that type of cable. So for the winter honey shawl, I think I do have tutorials specifically for that shawl. I've definitely have some cabling tutorials. My preferred method for working cables, especially in that shawl, is to do it without a cable needle because that shawl is all cables and it just ends up being a lot more efficient to not use a cable needle. So that is what the tutorials are for. And again, I'm going to link those below. There probably also should be linked in the notes of that pattern. That is one of my older patterns, so I would have to go peek and make sure, but they should be in there because I think I filmed it specifically for that shawl. But yes, I have tutorials for both the different size cables. So yeah, I'm gonna throw those below for the way that I love to do it. If you decide there's nothing wrong with using a cable needle, so if that just makes you feel a little more secure, you like the rhythm of it, by all means use one. And you can find loads of cabling tutorials here on YouTube. This is my preferred method. So I'll pop that down below for you. Next question. So we have chatted about this one before, but I think it bears repeating. My question is about the tubular bind off. I love the look of it, but I always struggle with how tight it is, which confuses me because the internet tells me it's a stretchy bind off. I am swatching for my second Traveler Crew. Yay! I love my first, but it's a squeeze to get the bound off edge of the neck over my head every time I wear it. And I would love to avoid this for my second. I already am super cautious to bind off as loosely as I can while still keeping the bind off edge neat, and I go up 1 to 2 needle sizes as well. I'm wondering if you have any other tips to try to get a more stretchy bind off edge, or do you know of a more stretchy bind off that is equally invisible? So, a couple things here. My favorite thing to do when I'm doing a tubular bind off, yes, it can be an incredibly stretchy bind off, but not if you do it too tight. And basically all a tubular bind off is using Kitchener stitch to bind off all of those stitches. So the trick, and when I have done it too tight, which I have more than once, is that we're just tugging our yarn that we're using to do Kitchener stitch. We're just tugging it too tight. And it's really tempting to do that because that is what helps it look like super tidy, right? So that is going to be the trick, is you cannot over tug on your yarn as you're doing that Kitchener stitch. And I promise you can do it looser and it'll still look really, really nice. And the best way to test it that I have found is like every inch, give a little tug and see if you've started to tighten up, because sometimes we can have the best intention to do something loosely, but we get into our rhythm or we want it to look tidier, and so we just start to tug. So that's what I do, is I constantly check how tight my edge is feeling. So that is what helps me. Another thing that I think you could try is, I would be curious if you have, how do you feel about the fit of the neck in general on your weekender crew? Do you love it once it's on? Or does it feel in general a little snug? Because you could also pick up a few extra stitches. You just need to have it. I feel like I did a 2x2 ribbing, pretty sure. So you could just add in multiples of 4 some extra stitches and make your neckline on that sweater a little bit bigger. And that would also help balance out, you know, the feeling of getting it over your head. There are definitely other stretchy bind offs that people love. One that I've recommended is Jenny's Surprisingly Stretchy Bind Off. The only reason that is not my go-to is because it is a very specific look to that bind off, where I love the seamless polished look of a tubular. It's why I default to it every time, because it just looks so polished. That being said, even a traditional bind off, if you can do it loose enough, once you're done with it, you're probably not really gonna look at the detail of it that much. I have plenty of people who knit my patterns and sub out the tubular cast on and bind off because they just find them too finicky, and so they'll do regular traditional ones, or maybe they'll put in the twisted German cast on for a stretchy edge and Jenny Surprisingly Stretchy bind off. I know there are sewn bind offs. I do not actually know the difference between a sewn bind off and a tubular. And it is on my list. It's on my list of things I want to try because I've heard people who absolutely love it. And I know that there's all kinds of methods along those lines. So if you have a favorite stretchy bind off that you're like, oh my gosh, you have to try this one, please throw it in the comments below so that we can all give it a whirl. But yeah, for the tubular, just test stretching as you go, and maybe consider picking up a few extra stitches. It's totally fine to adjust how many stitches you pick up in something like a neckline to get the circumference that you want, as long as you stay within the necessary multiples of the ribbing. All right, next question is a quick spinning question. I started spinning in March and I love it. You talk about loving a good 3-ply in episode 174. And I was wondering, do you do a 3-ply with fractal spinning? Absolutely. How do you separate your braid for that? I want to try fractal spinning, but I also love a 3-ply to hide my inconsistencies. Hope you have some advice. 100% you can do a fractal. So really all a fractal is breaking down the sections of your braid in different amounts. So you want to do a 3-ply, you are going to start by breaking your braid into 3 sections as even as you can. From there, you can break those 3 plies however you want. So you start with one big braid, you divide that into thirds. The first third, for me, generally for a fractal, I'm just going to spin that one end to end. I don't break it down any further. So I set that one aside. That one's ready to go. My second one, maybe it depends on how quickly I want the colors to change, which can depend on what I'm planning to knit. Am I doing a bigger project like a sweater, or am I doing something smaller like socks? If I'm doing something smaller like socks, I want the colors to change quicker so that I don't have like big old sections of one color. Sorry, my dad is trying to FaceTime me. I'll have to call him back. I have on Do Not Disturb, so I don't know how things go through, but anyways. Now, if I'm doing a sweater, I want to really try to lengthen how much time each color will have before the color shifts. So then I don't want to break down my braid as much. So again, first section, just going to leave it as is no matter what I'm knitting, generally speaking. Sections 2 and 3, I can play with. I might just break section 2 in half, and then section 3, I might just go ahead and do that one in quarters. And that's a really easy breakdown. So it's going to go 1, 2, 3. And there are loads of fractal spinning blog posts, tutorials, everything. So if any of this is unclear as to what I'm talking about, like breaking down your braid, sometimes a visual can be really nice. And there's tons of that out there. But hopefully that kind of makes sense, is you just take your one big braid, break it into thirds. Each third represents 1 ply of your 3-ply. Spin the first one end to end. Take the second one, divide it in half vertically, and spin each of those end to end. Take the third one, break that into quarters, and spin each of those end to end, and then ply them all together. And absolutely, that's one of my go-tos. I love to do a spin like that. Last question. I have knitted your Douglas cardigan, absolutely love it, and wear it almost 16 hours a day in the wintertime. Things like this, like, just kind of, they get me in the feels. There's nothing better than somebody knitting your pattern, except for maybe somebody then wearing it and loving to wear it. You know, like it just makes me so happy. So I'm so tickled that you love your Douglas Cardi. Speaking of my father, that one is named after him. His name is Douglas. His ears must have been burning. Or is it ringing? Anyways. Okay. I am wanting to make another, but would like to make it in the round and steek it. Would this be possible? Any hiccups I need to be aware of? I absolutely need another Douglas Cardi in my life, as this one will be threadbare in a year or two. I can't think of any reason not to do it. Absolutely. You could, what I would probably do is definitely add some steeking stitches, because you'll lose those. Once you cut it, those will get folded in. And that steek column can be however wide you want. Anything from 5 to 9 stitches is pretty standard. Typically you're going to do an odd number of stitches. So like 5, 7, 9 tend to be the 3 I see the most utilized. And I would just make sure you can kind of keep track of where your steek column is and understand how your shaping is going to, like, it's going to look really funny when you get to the V-neck part of that sweater, because it's going to be all bunched in next to your steek column. But then once you cut that, it's just going to open up and you're just going to be doing that shaping right alongside where those steeks are. But do it 100%. I would absolutely do that. So good luck. Let us know how it goes if you do it. All right. I busted a move right through these questions today. So now I get to go enjoy my breakfast brunch at my favorite restaurant. They are gluten-free and I love them and I can't wait. So we talked about the birthday sale. Again, you can save 25% off by using the discount code DRKYT, all caps. And you can use that over on Ravelry or on my website. Those links will be below. And it's good for any of my independently published patterns. So like one of the patterns that doesn't include is Ronin. I published that with Brooklyn Tweed years ago in Wool People, so I don't own the full rights. I can't include it in the sale. So patterns like that, if you have one in your cart that you're like, why isn't this one discounted? It's probably because I did it with a third party. There aren't a ton of patterns. Most of my patterns were independently published, so you might not even run into it, but that's something that I just can't really help. And then the only other one not included is the framed sweater, which I just released like a week ago. So that's why that one's not included, but I hope you find something you love. And the framed knit along has begun. We cast on just a couple days ago. I mean, some have already cast on. Some are already like halfway through their sweater. Some are really chugging along, but it officially kicked off on Tuesday. Yesterday was Wednesday. Tuesday. So please feel free to come join us. Links for that are below. 100 days of knitting and long draw are about to wrap up. That started April 1st. So we had April, June, July. Are we done? I have to see exactly how many days. We are about to be done. Oh my gosh, I've got to do a little end for those. All right. I think that is everything. I hope that you have such a great day and a fabulous weekend. I hope you find some patterns that you love during the birthday sale, and I will see you back here, I hope, next week. Bye.